Hello, everybody in the recruitment industry. I'm Claire Davis, and I'm here for a series of webinars on mental health. And our series is all about thriving in the highs and lows of recruitment. And with regards to COVID-19, thriving in the highs and lows of COVID-19 in recruitment. And here we have the wonderful Rhonda D'Ambrosio with me. Hello, Rhonda.
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm
Great to be
well.
here.
It is great to have you here as my first guest on this series. Thank you so much for coming. And Rhonda is an expert. Actually, I'm going to leave it to you, Rhonda, to introduce yourselves. Tell us about
Oh, thanks, Claire. For those that don't know, I'm Rhonda. I've been in the recruitment industry nearly 23 years, and I do a number of things. But I guess the clearest way I'd describe myself at the moment is a champion for mental health in the recruitment industry.
Thank you, Rhonda. And it's fantastic to have Rhonda on board as another champion of the mental health for the recruitment industry, because I believe I'm a champion as well.
Absolutely.
And I believe that there is nobody who knows everything with regards to mental health. We can all give little different tips and tricks. So what's your area of specialization, Rhonda?
I would say quality of thinking can be tied into growth mindset or reframing mindset, but that quality and flexibility of thinking.
Great, excellent. I love that. I love all the different terminology that we can use.
What's yours, Claire?
My special, my what is it? Signature dish?
Yeah.
All right. My signature dish is actually probably having conversations with people on how to make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
Because so often we sweep it under the carpet and avoid those conversations because it's all about targets, and succeeding in recruitment, isn't it?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, definitely. So first question for you, Rhonda. So in your view, why is positive mental health such an important factor in the recruitment sector?
Well, I think this is such an interesting question. I wholeheartedly believe it's important for every sector, but the reason why recruitment, for me, is a key space to have these conversations is because there are so many highs and so many lows in our industry. Yeah, we talk about this a lot. The highs are very high, the lows are very low, and there's almost a caveat that if you're in recruitment, you are resilient. You wouldn't be doing the job if we selected you because you could demonstrate a form of resilience. But I think what we don't do so well is we don't talk about the continuous resilience piece and developing those skills. And you know what? It's still a little bit of the stigma around talking about mental health and addressing mental health in the industry.
Yeah. And it's also being aware of when we are feeling high, that's fantastic, but it doesn't have to go down to a really low, does it?
No,
so
not
what
at
can
all.
we do when we're feeling on those highs, we're feeling on top of the world to stay there so that it doesn't dip down? What can we do?
Well, do you know what? This is why you know, and Alex knows from when I did the Inspire talk, I'm a massive fan of brain chemistry. It very much ties into the whole quality of thinking and getting a handle on our responses. And my big, what I go out and say is you choose your response. There are no bad emotions. We have to feel everything that we feel, but we still have that choice of then how we present out in our behavior. So, if we talk about it in brain chemistry terms, when we're very, very high, we're accessing huge amounts of happy chemicals. In recruitment, the big one I talk about is dopamine, because we have all of these targets, all of these goals, we achieve when we get our interview requests back from CV sent, when we get our vacancies, when we make the money, when we hit lunch clubs, when we hit our incentives. We're constantly getting these little bursts of dopamine. And so when that crashes and things aren't going our way, it's like crap. What can we do to level that out, to manage the brain chemistry? And it's understanding how to pull all of those things together that can stabilize us.
And what can we do if we're having a fantastic week and then we wake up one morning, we get into work, things haven't been going so well, the weather's not been great, the trains were late. This is when we're out of COVID as well, obviously, when we're out of COVID. So we're running late, things aren't going so well. What can we do if we're feeling like this is going to be quite a bad day?
Yeah.
I'm feeling a bit low. And then suddenly we get a phone call from a client and they say, stop those interviews. We had 15 interviews today. Stop them all. Tell them all not to come in. We're stopping it. What can we do?
Okay, so this is really interesting, and I think what you're talking about is that space that a lot of us end up in with this
Mm,
almost continuous negative thinking. When one thing happens, then another bad thing
yeah,
happens. We kind of get it into our heads that this all or nothing. It's all going wrong. I'm never going to have a good day.
yeah,
So
yeah,
some of the techniques that I'll talk to people about are slowing down.
yep,
Just taking a breath. Um, Not beating yourself up, and understanding that everybody has bad days. Okay,
yep,
but one bad day doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad week. So that
yep,
slow down, that stop, and that acknowledgement of actually the things that have been going really, really well, because we forget about those.
yep.
If you're familiar with, I don't know if we've talked about my Titanic thinking.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Do
So
you want to explain that to everyone?
the idea behind Titanic thinking, for those that don't know or haven't heard me talk about it, is if you take the ship, the Titanic, and look at her structural engineering,
Yeah.
she had these. She had 15 bulkheads in her hull, which made up these 16 watertight compartments. And the whole premise around her being able to stay afloat, and one of the reasons why she was said to be unsinkable, is that she could stay afloat with 4
Mm,
of these compartments breached.
yeah.
So typically what I talk to people about is looking at all the things that they're dealing with, all of those highs and lows that we've just talked, or how,
Mm,
this overwhelm, and separating them out into these compartments and scoring and giving, out of 10, how flooded am I feeling?
yeah.
And without going into too much detail, because I know we're not here to talk about Titanic thinking, but
Yeah.
the benefit of doing that is that instead of getting into this, everything is going wrong, everything I touch,
Mm,
you can say, oh, actually, that's not strictly true. Yeah.
yep.
This is going okay.
Yep.
This is working all right. My BD's been shocking, but my resourcing has been
Yep.
good.
Good
Yeah.
point.
And it's just something simple like that that can give us that kind of cognitive gear change, that
Yeah.
sort of shift into a different mindset and brain space to start thinking about, okay, what do I want the next week to look like? Or what do I want
Yep.
tomorrow to look like? And then breaking that down into these achievable bite sized goals, which will then enable people to access those dopamine chemicals again and get those little bursts.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. I love that. But what we've said here, Rhonda, is thinking about I've had a bad day. Let's move on for tomorrow.
Mm.
What can we do if it's say 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're feeling like the day is going to be bad? Can we do anything in the moment to switch it back so that then we don't have an unproductive day,
Yeah,
the rest of the day?
I think the big one for me is that if people are finding themselves in this lull and
Yeah.
feeling like it's going to be an unproductive day, they need to question themselves. Yeah,
Right.
a big part of that gear change is being able to stop your emotional brain,
Yeah.
move into your kind of logical conscious state, and
Excellent.
the way in which we do that is by asking ourselves questions. If we
Yeah.
want to shift from this emotional uh right, ask questions. Why is it I'm feeling that way?
Yeah.
Typically, what we do is we respond and react to what's happened,
Yeah.
and then we change our behavior. We don't
Yeah.
question why are we feeling
Feeling.
that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
once we do that, we're slowing ourselves down, we're asking
Yeah.
ourselves questions, and in the kind of, you take the CBT framework, cognitive behavioral
Yeah.
therapy,
Yeah.
what we're doing is we're saying, what facts have we got that support this way of thinking? What evidence is
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you really dig down, and you can
Yeah.
quite easily say, I don't have any evidence. I'm
Yeah.
making some assumptions. And I think that is a light bulb moment in order for people
Mm.
to kind of then reframe and say, right, close the door, shift it out. What can I do that is going to have a positive impact?
Yeah. I love that close the door, shift it out. So it's actually thinking, how do I close the door, shift it out? And the question that you asked there, Rhonda, which was, why is it that I'm thinking like this? Why am I feeling like this? What are some more questions we could ask ourselves?
I think questioning when the last time you felt that way is
Yeah.
important, or
Yeah.
understanding what our external and environmental stimulus
Mm.
is, because quite often, a lot of us are feeling this sort of way after we have,
Yeah.
if you've gone out and you had a heavy night or a heavy weekend, right? You can wake up the following day and you'll be feeling really sluggish. And it doesn't take a genius to work out that it could be because, you're not hydrated, you haven't had enough
Yeah.
fluid, probably overindulged on alcohol,
Yeah.
maybe your diet's not been great, and
Yeah.
typically you can sort of say to yourself, okay, so if I don't want to feel this way next Monday,
Yeah.
yeah, or Sunday, what I need to do is change my behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And, it's funny you say that because I felt a little bit like that this morning. I didn't have as much exercise yesterday as I wanted to. The weather wasn't great yesterday, and I probably did eat the wrong things yesterday. I was just feeling a bit more. How were you feeling this morning after the announcements last night? What were your
well,
feelings on it?
it's really funny because I was talking to my husband about this, and my superpower, I always say,
Yeah,
is my own quality of thinking and flexibility of thinking.
yeah,
And I don't know. I don't think I was feeling meh because of the content of the announcement per se. I think for me, it's that the shift in the weather. I'm
yeah, yeah.
definitely a different person when the sun's shining.
Same here.
Um, I think it's some of the feeds, the social media messaging, how
Yeah,
people were responding. And
yeah,
this is a very, very personal thing, and our own. I always say that mental health and well-being is a very personal journey.
yeah,
It's not one size fits all. But seeing how people, I think, were genuinely disappointed that we weren't 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead of where we are.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Which is
um,
understandable.
it's
Yeah.
it is understandable, but then I guess the question is, what else? What do we expect? So I think
Mm,
that seeing that definitely, definitely a bit down, bit like meh. But I genuinely believe, Claire, and I don't know if it's the same for you. When I started talking about well-being in lockdown a few weeks
mm,
ago, I've said that there was a novelty factor of the situation we all find ourselves in.
mm.
You know,
Yeah,
we've not been in this situation before.
yeah,
Huge proportion of the recruitment industry have never worked from home before.
yep.
And okay, this is
Mm,
this is different. What happens, and this is the question I pose, what happens when we're 5, 6, 7 weeks in and this is the
yeah.
new normal?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's like anything that's a novelty. It's exciting,
Yeah.
like when we go on holidays, it's exciting. If we move house, it's exciting. Then the honeymoon period is over.
Yeah.
So it's how are we actually coping? And what I want to sort of go back to is the cognitive behavioral technique, CBT. I find this quite powerful because I
Mm,
know myself, if my mind's thinking a certain way, then I'm speaking a certain way, then
mm,
I'm behaving a certain way. And I know myself, if I wake up in the morning, I think, oh, I've got to make 50 cold calls this morning. Then I'm getting on the phone and going, hello, how are you? But if I get up and say, this is an opportunity, I'm going to do really well, my mindset changes, and I'm feeling so much more positive
mm.
about anything that comes out of those calls. What are your thoughts on that one, Rhonda?
Yeah, do you know what? I often debate positive thinking.
Yeah.
Is positive thinking very, very powerful thing, or is it putting a sticky plaster over something and just sort of getting a short-term
Yeah.
reaction? So I think there's a balance in there. I think those statements can be very, very powerful if they're tied to outcomes. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yep.
kind of like you were saying, oh, don't want to necessarily just do those 50 calls. Don't just want to have a great day, but maybe chunk it down
Yeah.
to access those dopamine chemicals. I'm going to make 10 calls.
Yep.
I'm going to smash it. And then
Yep.
I'm going to reward myself by doing this activity. Yeah.
Excellent. Love the rewards. Love the
Yeah.
rewards. How could we reward ourselves there, Rhonda?
Well, do you know what? We talk about Zoom fatigue. We talk about the fact that we're
Mm,
all on screens even more. One of the things that I found from working in 100% remote working business is that you typically are more productive when you're working from home because you have less distractions. But
yep.
what you don't really factor in is
Mm,
what I call that remote working acuity, which is the perception piece. When we're together with people, we are tuned in a much greater degree to their nuances, their non-verbal communication. We're having to work so much harder right now to
yeah.
sort of see, am I creating that rapport?
Yep.
Is Claire enjoying talking to
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
I'm very tactile, so quite often, I'll
Yeah.
a little
Touch
tap to
someone. So
people.
am
Yeah, yeah.
I. So am I.
And we're not doing that. So
Yeah.
there's that productivity piece and that strain, and so therefore those breaks,
Yep.
whether it's a walk around the garden, 5
Yep.
minutes, a cup of coffee, it's
Yep.
okay. you know, I've got a good friend of mine that always, you know, she doesn't get it. She's retired some years ago, and says, "Oh, I don't get tech, I don't get technology." But she says to me, when people work from home, are they just not, watching TV and putting a load of washing on?
It's funny you say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm
It's
like, but you know
I've
what?
got people who say the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah, but
definitely.
it's okay to go and put a load of
It's
washing on.
fine because that's
Yeah.
actually a break. That's a break
Yes.
from the
Yeah.
IT, and it's a bit relaxing where we can get our thoughts back.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
We need those breaks. Well, I used to look at it in recruitment. I remember being in an office where half of the office smoked and half didn't.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting was I used to observe and go, wow, all the smokers are going out. They get a break. We don't actually get a break. So I started going out with the smokers to get that break. And it's very, very interesting because after a few days, I actually, back to the honeymoon period, I actually got a bit, I don't even like the smell of smoking. Why am I doing this? So we created in the office a different type of break. Would go to the tea room and have a different type of break. But it is very important, especially when we're in front of the computer all the time, to have those breaks, definitely. And trying to communicate, which is so different than when we're in front of the computer in the office and communicating on the phone. We're not having those breaks where we're chatting to the person next to us.
Yeah.
We're not having those breaks around the water cooler. So what can we actually do? Really important. So I want to think about the managers and leaders in our recruitment companies. What can managers and leaders do to promote mental health for their teams while we're on lockdown, but in the recruitment industry as a whole, it's so important.
Do you know, I don't know if we've got enough time for me to answer this question in full.
We've got 13 more minutes. Come on, Rhonda, get your act together. Come on.
This is a subject and topic that is very, very close to my heart and something that at Eben Able we're looking to address. And it's the primary reason why I founded Mental Health and Recruitment. The big thing for leaders with regard to looking after their team is what I believe, and it could be seen as controversial, but there's an intent piece there. Are you looking at supporting mental health in your business because it's the right thing to do, and because you know that it makes people happier, and happier people give you more discretionary effort, and therefore it's better for your bottom line? I don't get why people don't get it. Or are you simply looking to tick a box? If you're looking to tick a box, I'm not saying that nothing you will do will work, but there is a whole piece around that engagement, the culture, the trust between leadership and the business. And you're not going to benefit from really putting mental health initiatives or policy in place. So I really believe, and I saw somebody put a post out on this yesterday that I responded to in the same way. Leaders have to really look at what their role is in supporting mental health in the workplace. Yeah. Is the intent there? Is the intent there for the right reasons?
Yep.
And then how do we normalize ahead of initiatives, support, awareness? Claire, I think it's great. I know that, like me, this is going to be is typically Mental Health Awareness Week is one of the busiest times of the year for us. But you have to look beyond that if you really care about this stuff.
Definitely. And you're bringing me back actually to the days many years ago when appraisals were first introduced into organizations and recruitment companies. And I remember working in a company where the appraisal was just the tick the box. And it was a situation we'd go in for an hour, they'd sit there, they wouldn't really listen, and they'd tick, 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 tick. It was really a bit of a, this is what you've done well, this is what you've done badly. And we only listened to the badly. And it wasn't all about actionable objectives of what we could actually do. So it's the same with mental health. We shouldn't be doing it as the tick the box. Sorry, I interrupted you there, Rhonda. What were you going to say?
No, you just said, the big word for me at the moment, and I was talking to somebody about this last week. Awareness, I think, has improved. I don't think it's where it needs to be in our industry, but it has improved if I consider what I've done in this space since probably 2016. But what we're not doing, and I think it's because we don't know how to, is taking that action. That's the key.
And people are very, very brilliant at having conversations and questioning with clients and candidates, but quite scared to have that conversation. If somebody broke their leg, would quite rightly go up to them and say, "Oh, you broke your leg. What happened? How are you feeling?" Da, 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 da. When it's got to do with mental health, because it's so much more personal, people are quite scared to have that conversation and open up the conversation. So it's those skills on how to have a different type of conversation.
Yeah.
It's a completely different type of questioning than questioning your clients and your candidates.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
I think this is where we have a job to do.
Yeah.
And mental health and recruitment is an initiative where
Yeah.
there is access for recruitment business leaders, for recruiters to be able to see who is doing this stuff well in the market, who can support them. And
Yeah.
the work that I know you do with mental
Yeah.
health first aid and everything there
Yeah.
is so important, because
It is.
if I look at probably 90 to 95% of the talks that I may have done in the last 24 months, I would say that typically I have some of the same questions that come back. And that is, what do I do if somebody comes to me and tells me they have anxiety, they're stressed?
Yeah.
Because we go into survival mode as business
Yes,
owners,
we do.
right? And we go,
Yeah.
ugh,
Bottom line. What's
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
happen to the
yeah.
bottom line? Yeah,
But
definitely.
sometimes the stress and the anxiety doesn't actually impact our capability to
Yeah.
do a good job. And
Yeah.
that's the grey line and the blurred area. I think,
Yeah.
Claire, that's why it's so
And
important.
and each person is an individual, and that's what we have to be aware of as well. Stress and anxiety for one person is going to be different for the next person. Some people thrive on it for their productivity and others don't. So how can we actually work with that individual? What we also need to be aware of are those individuals, the recruiters. So how can recruiters themselves take responsibility and bring in positive mental health into their own lives so that they are successful?
But isn't it funny that if we were talking about physical health, how odd that we may position that exact same question, what should recruitment business owners be doing to support the physical health of their
Yeah.
employee? It's almost a reverse piece there. So, I think we're talking about mental health generally, but we're also talking about mental health in the workplace. And
Yeah.
individuals have to understand that whilst absolutely there is a duty of care on the employer, with regards to mental health support, it has to come from them. They have to own it. And in the same way, and this is where I'm going with the analogy, the same way that they are responsible for their physical health and they determine how often they go to the gym, how much physical exercise they do, they need to factor that in for their mental health as well.
Definitely.
That self-learning, understanding more about themselves. There are tools out there that can support them.
Definitely. It's so interesting you say that. I've had a friend for probably 10 years who's been saying to me, "Why don't you try meditation? Why don't you just try it?" I can't sit still. I really can't. So I'm really good at meditating at the end of my yoga class, which is 2 or 3 times a week. So what I set myself was a 21-day challenge during lockdown, 10 minutes of meditation a day. And guess what, Rhonda? I'm a different person. It is brilliant. So it is taking that ownership, and it's not having those blocks of, that would never work for me. That wouldn't be good for my mental health. For me, breathing and meditation has really reformed me. So
the best tip that I would give to anybody is to either Audible or book is to read Carol Dweck's Mindset.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. I love Carol Dweck.
Oh, I'm a massive fan of her work. I talk about it a lot, but if you can understand that real concept between growth mindset, fixed mindset, that we were just saying, setting up, leaning into your comfort zone. I talked about that a lot with Katie Maycock in the last few weeks. That helps us grow. It really does. And it does build resilience as well. It helps, what I say, stretch our metaphorical elastic band.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. I was talking to my 17-year-old daughter just the other day on one of our walks, talking about Carol Dweck's growth mindset. And the earlier we bring it into our lives, that's why I brought it up with my 17-year-old, the better off we're going to be for that resilience in the long term. brilliant. I'm so glad you brought that up. So what else could recruiters do to really, when they've got the highs and the lows, both of them, to make it probably more in the middle for the positive mental health? Because it's great being high, but then the lows are so much lower. So what could recruiters do to have more of a medium?
Do you know what? Honestly, can we ever get that medium in our industry? I hope we
Yeah,
could. I think
yeah,
that whole piece around emotional intelligence and being able to kind of gear change or
yeah.
calibrate your thinking
Mm,
is the biggest piece. If they can master, shifting from that emotional state, either high or low, into this neutral space and really tap into emotional management, then that's a skill in itself. And actually, that's something I know. You asked me offline about the initiative that I'm going to be championing with
yep,
TRN, the
yep.
recruiter resilience, and emotional management. It forms a part of that. Actually, that is
Brilliant.
to give people kind of the skills or the knowledge to be able to gear change, get back to this space of
Brilliant.
normality, as Daniel Goleman would coin
Excellent.
it.
Good. So that sounds like something big that you're working on. What else have you been working on, Rhonda?
God, yeah, I got some brilliant things going on. I think a number of you know that at the beginning of lockdown, I was part of a team. I was co-creator of a wellbeing resilience program called Kite Support. So that took up the first couple of weeks. That's brilliant. That is a tool for individuals and employers to support building resilience through adversity right now. That came off the back of the work that we were doing at Eben Able around professional development and wellbeing. We just launched that joint venture, so that's happening in the background as well. So that's sort of pulling together all of these pieces around wellbeing and our development as recruiters. The TRN piece, I'm sure I'm mental health and recruitment. Yeah, I'm
Brilliant.
really busy.
And I'm loving the fact that we can collaborate, because
Me
the
too.
more heads is so great. Have you also been learning the guitar and singing? You would make a great country singer, I think, Rhonda. It suits you, all of
Thank you,
this.
Claire. I play that guitar very badly. That's my classical. My husband is the guitarist, but I do sing. So I
Oh, I want to see you on the radio, on the microphone next time, singing away. Well, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening, and I'm so excited about this series on thriving in the highs and lows of recruitment. There are so many highs, so many lows. How can we thrive? We want to be successful. So next week, same time, Monday at 2:00, we've got Martin Grady from the Thrive team. It's not coincidental that he has the same name as us, thriving in the highs and lows. But Martin has been in recruitment for well over 20 years, and he's going to give some lots and lots of tips and tricks on self-care and recruitment. So thank you very much, Rhonda. Would you like to add anything to what we've said?
No, I genuinely really appreciate the invite to come on and talk to you. I love what you're doing, Claire. And collaborate, not compete. Absolutely.
Oh, I believe it in every industry, even the recruitment industry. I really do. So thank you very much, and well done for all your hard work. And I can't wait to join you again. And next time we want a song. How about that?
Yeah, we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
Take
Thanks
care.
a lot. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.